This happened a couple years back. I'm a long-haul truck driver. I've been doing this for years now, so I've gotten pretty used to the long stretches of nothing. This particular night, I was on my second-to-last delivery of a cross-state loop, just trying to knock it out so I could get home. The route had me cutting through one of those desert highways that barely get any traffic at night. No towns for miles, no gas stations, barely even any lights. Just a two-lane road slicing through open desert under a sky full of stars. It's the kind of drive where you start to feel like you're the only person left on the planet. I was about an hour out from my next drop-off when I first noticed it. I glanced into one of my side mirrors and was kind of surprised to notice a dark SUV back there trailing me. It wasn't riding my bumper or anything aggressive like that. It was actually keeping a pretty wide distance, but it was definitely following. No matter how fast or slow I went, it adjusted to match. For nearly 40 meters, it just hovered there in my mirrors. Always visible, always keeping that same strange gap. He never tried to speed up or pass, just sat back there like he was waiting for something. At first, I thought it was a driver who was afraid to pass me. Maybe they thought it was illegal or dangerous, but I cast that theory aside after driving through several passing zones. I guess it was possible they didn't know what a passing zone was, but I figured that was pretty implausible. As much as I was dying to know what was going on, I had a job to do. I couldn't afford to devote the whole night to figuring out what the guy behind me's problem was. So I tried to ignore him. As much as I tried, though, I couldn't help but glance at his car every so often. It was really starting to make me tick, which is something I rarely ever do. Around 2 a.m., I decided to pull off at a small roadside rest area. It wasn't a full truck stop or anything like that, just a dirt lot with a few faded parking spaces and a little shed with a couple of vending machines. There were also no external lights in the whole lot, except for one dim bulb flickering above the vending machines. I figured I'd stretch my legs for a minute, grab a soda, and more importantly, let whoever was behind me pass. But when I glanced back before shutting off the engine, I saw that SUV pull in too, parking way off in the far corner of the lot. At that point, whatever confusion or discomfort I was feeling became pure rage. Whoever was driving that SUV was about to get a piece of my mind. I aggressively stepped down from the cab and started making my way over to the car, not even trying to disguise my frustration. But as I was stomping my way over there, whoever was inside must have realized that I was about to confront them. Because before I could even get close, the SUV's engine suddenly flared to life, and they peeled out of the spot like they were running from the cops, kicking up a huge cloud of dust and gravel. As they sped past me, I tried to catch a glimpse of the jack-off who was behind the wheel, but the windows were tinted, and I couldn't make anything out. I watched as the car got back on the highway, tires still screeching. Within seconds, it was gone. Just a flicker of red tail lights that quickly receded into nothingness. Part of me was relieved. I wouldn't have to deal with that nuisance anymore, and I could finally go about my night in peace. But another part of me was deeply unsettled. I had basically confirmed to myself that whoever was driving that car had been following me for some unknown reason. And what's worse, they clearly didn't want me approaching their vehicle, so their intentions must have been hostile. As I was returning from the vending machines, which coincidentally were completely unstocked, so that had been a huge waste of time, I only then realized how tired the whole encounter made me. My energy was zapped, and the last thing I wanted to do was get back on the road. I figured I'd earned at least a short break after all that. Just a quick nap, an hour or two to recharge before finishing the route in the morning. I did a quick walk around the rig. I made sure the cargo doors were still locked and everything was secured tight, then climbed back into the cab. I reclined my seat, cracked the window slightly to let some air in, and settled in for a bit of rest. The lot was dead quiet by that point, and for the first time all night I actually started to relax. My logic was that even if that person did mean me harm, there's no way they turn their vehicle around just to continue harassing me. Even if they did want to come back, finding the lot again would be next to impossible. They'd have to search blindly in the middle of a pitch-black desert. The combination of my exhaustion and newfound comfort made falling asleep really easy. If I had to guess, I'd say I fell asleep that night in a matter of minutes. I should probably mention that I'm a really light sleeper. Like really light. You kind of have to be in this line of work. Sleeping in sketchy roadside places so often builds a third eye, so to speak. If someone's messing with your rig while you're asleep, your entire livelihood could be at risk, not to mention your life. So, yeah, the ability to wake up to even faint sounds could be the difference between job and no job, life and death. Maybe an hour after falling asleep, you guessed it, I was woken up by the faintest little noise, a light crunching sound like footsteps pressing into the loose gravel. Even though I was still groggy, I had enough sense to keep quiet. I cracked the corner of one of my window blinds to take a look outside, and sure enough, there were two figures standing near the rear wheels of my trailer. They were crouched down low, inspecting the lower latch mechanisms, like they were trying to figure out how to open them without making too much noise. They were keeping pretty quiet, but I noticed one of them had a small flashlight, using it to signal back and forth to the other. I couldn't make out any faces, but it was clear as day what they were doing. I didn't have any weapon on me. I usually don't, but if it came down to it, I was fully prepared to defend my rig and load. That's my life. As I watched, one of the guys reached into a small bag and pulled out what looked like a pair of bolt cutters. That was it. Without even thinking, I slammed my palm down on the horn, sending the truck's air horn blaring. Their reaction was instant. Both men jumped like they'd been hit with a lightning bolt, and they scrambled back towards the roadside brush. Not even 10 seconds later, I saw headlights appear out of nowhere. It was that same SUV from earlier, this time roaring back into view with its lights still off before whipping around and disappearing into the night again. I never even had time to step out of my cab before the whole thing was over. After things calmed down a bit, I called the police. Honestly, I was mostly just calling to report the incident and get it on record, but they insisted I stay put until a unit could get there to check things out. It took a while, but eventually 2 officers showed up and helped me inspect the truck. Sure enough, there were fresh pry marks along one of the lower lock arms on the back of my trailer, right where those guys had been messing around. Fortunately, they hadn't gotten it open. The officers told me they'd seen this kind of thing before. Cargo thieves. Apparently, it's a lot more common along that corridor than most people realize. They figured the SUV had been following me for a while, waiting for the right time to strike. This remains the most unsettling thing that has ever happened to me.